Welcome to Awakening the Spiritual Mind. My name is Elizabeth Carrier, I am your host. In this episode, we open Chapter 11, Awakening Spiritual Intelligence. But before to go further, I'd like to begin with a passage from the book itself.
Chapter 11, Awakening Spiritual Intelligence. What if the part of you best suited to navigate this moment in history was not your intellect, your will, or even your empathy, but your soul? In a world overwhelmed by complexity, uncertainty, and speed, many feel lost or fragmented. They seek clarity, guidance, or grounding, but they look in the wrong place. The answers they need do not come from outside, nor from more data or more effort. They come from something older and deeper, the quiet intelligence of the soul. This chapter is about awakening that intelligence. What is spiritual intelligence? Spiritual intelligence is not about religion, dogma, or belief systems. It is about presence. It is the capacity to remain aligned with your deepest values and inner knowing, even when life feels uncertain or chaotic. Like IQ or emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence, often abbreviated as SQ, is a form of knowing. But unlike the others, it integrates thought, feeling, embodiment, and intuition into something more than logic, a coherent inner compass. The psychologist Robert Emmons, who helped pioneer the academic study of SQ, defined it as the adaptive use of spiritual information to facilitate everyday problem solving and goal attainment. For him, spiritual intelligence was not esoteric. It was practical. It involved the ability to sanctify everyday experience, to draw on transcendent values in making decisions, and to live in alignment with what he called ultimate concerns, those questions that go beyond ego and immediate gratification. Building on this foundation, Dana Zohar and Ian Marshall proposed that spiritual intelligence is the intelligence with which we access our deepest meanings, values, purposes, and highest motivations. For them, SQ is what allows us to reframe pain, find coherence in complexity, and act with integrity in the face of pressure. It is the intelligence that gives us access to the why behind the what, the dimension of motivation, vision, and inner truth. To live from spiritual intelligence is to resist fragmentation. It is to navigate ambiguity without collapsing, to respond to life not from fear but from essence, and to find clarity in paradox. It does not guarantee certainty, but it offers direction. It does not promise ease, but it invites meaning. Above all, it does not require perfection. It asks only for presence. Why is spiritual intelligence vital today? We are living through a time of rupture. The structures we once relied on, economic, political, social, even cultural, are shifting, crumbling, or revealing their limits. The old maps no longer match the terrain. Institutions that once held coherence now feel brittle. And the stories we inherited about success, power, identity, and control are breaking apart faster than we can replace them.
What we just heard reframes intelligence itself. We've been trained to value the measurable, IQ, intelligence, cognitive, the intelligence which tracks reasoning, and emotional intelligence which tracks emotion. But what about spiritual intelligence? This is not about abstract spirituality. It's about how you actually live. Think about it. Intelligence, cognitive, helps you solve a problem. Emotional intelligence helps you navigate a relationship. But spiritual intelligence helps you ask the deeper question. Why does this matter? What is truly at stake? Without that compass, even brilliant strategies or empathic gestures can feel hollow. And notice how this is not about escaping reality, quite the opposite. Spiritual intelligence grounds you so that you can stand steady inside reality, even when it's messy, contradictory, or unpredictable. For example, imagine being in a work environment where everything is urgent. Decisions are rushed, emotions are high. If you respond only with intellect, you might analyze data. If you respond only with emotion, you might collapse under the stress. But with spiritual intelligence, you pause, you breathe, you remember your values. And from that place, you choose, not perfectly, but coherently. Spiritual intelligence is presence in action. It is what keeps you from squattering when life fragments. It's what makes you trustworthy to yourself and to others. And here is something subtle but important. Spiritual intelligence doesn't mean certainty. It doesn't guarantee outcomes. It offers something even more precious: direction. A compass, not a map. In times of rupture, that compass is everything. Let's return now to the book and hear more about how this intelligence shows up in daily life.
What does it look like in action? Spiritual intelligence is not a concept to be admired from a distance. It is not limited to insight or reflection. It is revealed in the way a person shows up, in speech, in silence, in decisions, in presence. You recognize it in someone who speaks with both clarity and compassion, grounded in reality, yet guided by deeper values. It appears in those who choose integrity over popularity, who act not to please, but to remain true to their inner compass. It is visible in the ability to hold paradox without rushing toward easy answers, and in the quiet courage to stand in uncertainty without collapsing into fear. This form of intelligence often manifests in simple, unassuming ways. It may be a pause before responding, a boundary set without hostility, a no that honors truth, or a yes that aligns with purpose. These acts are rarely dramatic, but they carry weight because they come from coherence rather than compensation. Psychologist Cindy Wigglesworth, in her research on SQ development, describes such expressions as signs of ego self-mastery, a developmental stage where the self is no longer the center of every narrative but becomes an instrument of conscious service. SQ21. The 21 Skills of Spiritual Intelligence, 2012. She identifies specific behaviors, such as maintaining inner and outer peace under stress, or making wise and compassionate decisions, as observable outcomes of mature spiritual intelligence. These behaviors are not driven by performance or fear of judgment. They arise naturally from an internal alignment between values, emotions, intuition, and action. In psychological terms, they reflect a high degree of self-transcendence. Cloninger, 2004. An orientation toward the sacred or meaningful that transcends the individual ego. When this kind of intelligence is present, it creates a field of trust, not just in the person who embodies it, but in the relational space around them. Others feel safer, more seen, more willing to be real. That too is a sign of spiritual intelligence. Its effects ripple outward, often quietly, but unmistakably. How to awaken. Spiritual intelligence. Spiritual intelligence cannot be summoned by force. It does not respond to willpower or technique in the conventional sense. However, it can be cultivated. Like a seed, it requires the right inner conditions in order to grow. When those conditions are present, spiritual intelligence begins to emerge, not as an achievement, but as a natural unfolding. The first condition is silence, not merely the absence of noise, but an inner stillness, a willingness to listen without rushing, without solving, without controlling. Without this kind of silence, the voice of spiritual intelligence remains drowned beneath the surface chatter. As Thomas More wrote in Care of the soul thrives in silence. In fact, many contemplative traditions agree depth of awareness requires the slowing of mental turbulence. The second condition is embodied awareness. The body is not separate from the soul, it is the gateway. When we become grounded in physical sensation, when we breathe, feel, and inhabit the body fully, we often discover clarity that was inaccessible to the thinking mind.
Did you notice the examples? This intelligence is not flashy. It is not about big titles or dramatic gesture. It's the small, consistent ways coherence shows up. Maybe you've seen this in someone before, a person who stayed calm in the storm, who doesn't rush to fill the silence, who said just a few words and they land with weight. That's spiritual intelligence in action. It's rare, but unmistakable. And here is a paradox. Spiritual intelligence is not something you acquire like a skill set. It's something you uncover, because it's already in you. What makes the difference is practice, creating the right conditions over and over so that this deeper intelligence has room to breathe. When silence is honored, when intuition is respected, when coherence is chosen, spiritual intelligence surfaces. Not to make life easier, but to make life meaningful. Let's try a short reflection together. Close your eyes, if you can. Breathe gently. Bring to mind one decision you made recently, small or large. Now ask yourself, did I act from fear, habit, or ego? Or from alignment with my deeper truth? What signals did my body give me at what moment? Tightness, ease, resistance, flow? If I had paused just a little longer, what might spiritual intelligence have whispered to me? As usual, notice without judgment. This is how we begin to reawaken the compass, not through force, but through attention. Spiritual intelligence is not a luxury. It's essential for navigating this era of uncertainty. It's what allows you to walk into complexity without losing yourself, to make decisions that are not just smart or kind, but aligned. As you let this settle, ask yourself, where in my life am I most fragmented right now? What would coherence look like even in one small step? And what happens when I trust the compass within me instead of chasing answers outside? In your awakening journal, write freely in response to this prompt. Where do I sense the compass of spiritual intelligence in my life right now? What small practice could help me honor it more consistently this week? In the next chapter, we will explore how spiritual intelligence bridges the mind, heart, and body into a coherent presence. Thank you for listening to Awakening the Spiritual Mind.